Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Samir Uberoi from Designer Incentives. We know each other for 25 years, and we are talking about what it is to do an incentive in India and what it is to be a business owner and going to the roller coaster of entrepreneurial life. Enjoy my conversation with Samir. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meetings. And today, I am delighted to take you to the other side of the world in a beautiful and amazing country with Samir Uberoi from Designer Incentive. Samir and I have known each other for 25 years, and I thought it was a great guest if he would have found the time. And today he has found the time. So Samir, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, Eric. I guess we've known each other 25 years. So fantastic. It's just been incredible. Yeah.
25 years. That is frightening. You look the same as 25 years. So there must be something there.
I don't think so. I don't think the hair, as you see, is gray, no longer black.
Well, some people are listening to the podcast. They don't have the image, so that's fine.
Okay.
But you have a fascinating journey. And I thought it was really appropriate to speak with you today, to tell us about your story also, and also just to move forward. And what is it today? What are the advice you have for people that own their business in our industry? So first thing first, what is the story of Samir Uberoi?
Well, story actually started with me wanting to be an investment banker. And therefore, I studied finance in college. Graduated and came starry-eyed to New York City back in 1990, thinking that I would be this hotshot investment banker. And sort of as I was searching, one day stumbled into an old acquaintance who used to be with a financial company and now owned a travel company. And I went and met him and I said, can you give me some contacts in the finance world? And he said, well, yes, I can. He said, but I'm just about to start my operations into India. And whilst you sort of search for your job in finance, why don't you come to the office and help me with my India program? And Eric, the rest is history. I don't think I went back to finance. A few weeks later, he offered me a job. I realized I found this a lot more interesting. Not that I had done anything in finance, but I had seen some friends who were in the finance world. And I said, you know what? I think this seems to be a lot more fun. So got into the travel world and worked in New York City for 5 years. It was during that time that my two business partners, Sarvin and Dimple, who obviously you know well, they had started Designer Holidays in 1990, and basically, they were in the process of setting it up. And 5 years later, 1995, they sort of asked me. They said, are you ready to come back? Are you wanting to come back? And to be honest with you, my wife and I, we were ready. We were, we had spent 10 glorious years in the US, and we said, we are now ready to come back. So in 1995, I came back to Mumbai and joined Sarvin and Dimple in which was still at that stage Designer Holidays, which was a company which specialized in tours, in FITs and groups. And that's where it started in India, and quite by chance, sort of started on the designer incentives route or the incentives business. But basically my foray into the travel world and travel industry was definitely not planned. It was just something that just happened.
Amazing. And I forget about that part with your story, which is quite similar, although I didn't do 10 years in New York at that time. But I worked 2 years in finance, developing the marketing department of Stockbroker. Great people, great project, and definitely missing the bugs of traveling and organizing an amazing program, which is what I joined our industry as well. So, and so, as you say, the rest is history. But when you moving back from the US to India, and when you are now becoming a partner and responsibilities, what changed in your mind? Is there any stress, or you're just not thinking about it at that time?
Uh, when I moved back, Eric, I wasn't a partner at Designer Holidays. So I think, and I was very happy about that. I think Sarvan and Dimple, I had a senior enough position, but I sort of worked my way to the partnership. But absolutely, I mean, it was a huge change in the entire mindset, because whereas in the United States, I worked for a wonderful company, and I had a wonderful boss and worked with some lovely people. But here it was almost that you went from being an employee to being almost a business owner, and that initially, I must be honest with you, was not easy. You always yearn for that. And then obviously a few years later, when I became partner, there was still a further shift from being a senior person in an organization which obviously I considered my own, and then becoming a partner. So absolutely, I mean, it's a complete change in mindset. I think a lot more responsibility. You're not just responsible for yourself. It's not just a job. There are a lot of people who are depending on you. Obviously, the entire way you function changes. When you go from that, when you take that step from being working for someone to working for yourself and having your own business.
As they say, be careful for what you wish, right?
Absolutely.
So when does that became the change of name? When did you go from Designer Holidays to Designer Incentives, and why did you do that?
So basically, we were doing tours, and we were doing groups, and we were very happy doing that. And in 1995, so literally the day that I came and started my journey with Designer Holidays, then Sarvan and Dimple had received a request from one of our tour operating principals from France, who said, you know what, we have a back-to-back incentive, and would you be interested, and would you be able to handle this? And so I came back, and I reached the office, and Sarvan and Dimple said, listen, you know what, we've got this back-to-back 2 incentives, and why don't you travel with us? I have to be honest with you, Eric, my knowledge of India was almost zero. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm, let me interrupt you just there on that. I'm not surprised, because I have a lot of Indian friends here in the US that have or are not been there for years, or been living most of their life here. Some of them ask me where they should go when they go to India.
Absolutely. So anyway, we sort of did these 2 groups or these incentives, and it was the realization, at least more so with Sarvan and Dimple, because obviously they were more experienced with the tour operating part in India, as to how different an incentive was to a tour. When they came back, and clearly it was a lot more interesting, it was a lot more challenging, it was you had to be that much more innovative. It was just a lot nicer, let me put it that way. Not for a moment to say that the tours and that part wasn't interesting as well, but this clearly was a completely new ballgame. So this happened in 1995, and then we sort of went out, and we must have come and met you, and we traveled to Europe and UK, and we went as Designer Holidays. And the one feedback we kept getting was, they said, "Oh, you do incentives? We don't know that, because your name says Designer Holidays." And at that point, it was something that was sort of brought to our attention, that what, you may want to make it a little bit clearer that you do incentives and conferences and MICE. And therefore, a few years later, we actually established Designer Incentives and Conferences, which was actually an offshoot of Designer Holidays, but clearly, so that people could identify with what we were doing from the incentive or the conferencing perspective.
Absolutely. And for those listening that, excuse me, might know the difference, basically incentive trips are travel experiences that you go through where the participant don't know the price, when they live a lot of contrast, and most importantly, they live moment and experiences that they cannot duplicate if they go
Absolutely.
back to the destination or the city with their families and their friends.
But yeah, and also, I think, Eric, what you said, what was really interesting was when we started doing incentives, it was a learning process, not just for us, but it was a very, so therein lies the challenge as well as the success. The challenge was, how do we educate our partners, the hotels, and all the people who we are going to work with, that an incentive is not a tour group. And but for that to happen, we had to first learn that ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the success is that many years later, today, thankfully, I think we have achieved some degree of success in making that differentiation.
Absolutely.
And also the satisfaction, I guess, to have played a small part in bringing about that change in a destination. And again, we also work with Sri Lanka and with Nepal, and the same there. So we've been fortunate that we work in destinations where one has been able to actually sort of bring about a little bit of change in that in the whole process of the realization of the difference between the two. Sri Lanka, I think, was a little bit more developed from an incentive perspective, but Nepal, I mean, again, as I said, they would probably have been a little bit a few years behind India. But
Yep.
It's been fantastic. It's been fascinating. It's been challenging, but it's been rewarding as well.
Do you do Bhutan as well?
We do Bhutan as well. Bhutan again is really it's quite a fascinating country. It's for a very specific type of incentive, because obviously it's not a party destination. You need to have a little bit more of a discerning group that wants to go there. But all I can say to you is that those who have been there, I mean, it's just been a trip of a lifetime. It really is the last lost kingdom. A lot has changed. I mean, in Bhutan, even in the last 15 years, the first time I went to Bhutan 15 or 17 years ago, there wasn't even television. So, I mean, as I say, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just that that's how it was.
Yeah.
Yes, we do Bhutan as well. And again, as I said, Bhutan, I think, is going to be the next really interesting destination, because I think post-pandemic, I think people will look for more those sort of experiences, which are going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, from what I understand, and I've never been there yet, they don't measure GDP. They measure level of happiness. Is that true?
It absolutely is. It's the GNH, which is the gross national happiness. It's an incredible country. They've been very fortunate. They've had exceptional rulers, who have been really forward thinking, and their sole goal has been the betterment of the people of Bhutan. It really it's a wonderful, wonderful country with lovely people and experiences which are really unique. And again, as I say, I definitely feel that is going to be probably one of the destinations which is going to be the new incentive destination. It's not really new, but it's going to be it'll have a renewed vigor to it.
Yeah. And I think it's time as well. I should have started probably with that, but full disclaimer, we did many projects when I had my incentive house in Belgium. I did my honeymoon in India. I came with my family 4 years ago. And I've always been fascinating, first of all, by the people and their kindness, the sense of service, and really the things that you can do, the experience is just thinking about it now. I'm almost like in another state as absolutely beautiful. But what I was fascinated when we did this first project with Sunny Music, first of all, in terms of cultural differences, great. Arriving there and meeting finally Dimple and Sarvin and you in your country, because we had met before a different trade show. And I was asking Sarvin, can we do that? And he started nodding, and I said, why do you say no? And obviously, it's just a way of expressing yourself. Then you understand, you go, yeah, I think it's possible. So, okay, good. But the different contrast you can do there, it's just fascinating. But what I remember for me that the most important in my business was when we did this program with Sunny Music. Every time, it's my role. What about this? What about that? We should check this. We should check that. Every single time, You were looking at me with a big smile. Said, it's done. It's done. Before I ask. And just for the people understand what it is really in terms of experience, we were with Sony Music, and 2 years prior we went to Zimbabwe, and the customer had bought a page of advertisement in the professional magazine to thank Sony Music for the program. And so then we went to India, and when they came back, they bought the back cover of the magazine. So how great that.
That's fantastic.
That it was. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, to sort of, I guess there, as you know, Eric, because obviously you know India well, but in India there's a saying which is the guest is God. There is a saying, and I think more than the urban cities, I think you probably will corroborate this. When you go into our villages, the experiences that you speak of, I think that's when that experience truly is visible. That's what differentiates a country like India, where you truly get a sense of the guest is God. I find this even when I travel. When I travel from Mumbai to a small village, it's they truly consider me. They truly consider it a privilege to have me be at their home, and that's no different, thankfully, when we do incentives. And again, as I said, it gives me great joy when you say what you say about the destination, because it is true. I think in our part of the world, I think that is something we truly value. That if we are able to sort of look after the guests well, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely, and then the people that you can work with there as well. Kalpana, and I cannot speak with you without talking about Kalpana, who is absolutely a gem, whose father was close to the Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes.
And she knows India, left and right, north and south, any question. And I remember the first group we had, every night would be 6 or 7 with my customer and then some of their participant and her. And had question about India, about the history, about the economy, about the culture, about everything. Up to a point that one night we even spent the whole night talking. And
I remember that very clearly, Eric, because I had to wake up everybody the next morning to take them to the Taj Mahal at sunrise, if you remember correctly.
I do.
We were knocking on everybody's door trying to wake them up, but they were fast asleep because you had just gone to sleep about 1 hour before that.
No, we did that night. We didn't even slept. And people come say, "Oh, you're already at breakfast." No, we're still talking, and that's why you nickname us the Conversation Club.
Exactly.
But no, just going back to running a business in our industry, and working with people like you, like her, like the team, it's obviously essential when you go to another country that you don't know, that you need the right partners. But going back to managing the business, so you say you started mid-90s, 25 years later, the roller coaster of running a business, the different crises, and as Elton John would say, I'm still standing. You're
Exactly.
Still there. Can you share some of the stories, some of the memories that come to mind, just to inspire business owners that, it's not always nice and beautiful and pink, but it's worth the ride.
Absolutely. So again, as I said, we started Sarpan and Dimple started in 1990 in an India which was very different from the India that we live in today. I guess that would be true of most countries, but I would hazard a guess, Eric, that the change that has taken place in India over the last 30 years has really been quite incredible. It was not a very easy place to work. Sarvan and Dimple and myself, all three of us sort of started. We were all people who had jobs, and then one fine day decided that we were going to start a business. So obviously the challenges were things that you sort of foresee a few, but there are so many that you don't foresee. I think the joy of it was building the team, getting close to people who we were sort of, it was a small family. As we always said, it was like a little mom and pop store, which grew person by person. It was fantastic. And again, at our largest, we were about 50 people. That included, our chauffeurs and the people who worked in our office, and people, everybody. That was a great joy. Is a great joy. The challenges, of course, dealing with the bureaucracy, dealing with the system. Obviously, we live in a country where, as you know, there were more times when we had certain incidents that took place. So I think the challenge of and the joy of starting the business and owning a business, Eric. I guess Sarvin, Dimple, and I were people, who hadn't, we didn't run our own business. We came from a background where we worked for other companies. So whereas, you can foresee a few issues, you have no idea until you actually start your own business what the joys are going to be and what the challenges are going to be. India, as I mentioned, in 1990, it was quite a challenge just starting a business, getting the permissions, getting simple things like, if you wanted to get, whether it be a charter flight, whether it be, trying to get group blocks for trains. These were all challenges. In addition to that, as you are growing, you sort of have other issues which as a business owner you need to deal with, whether it be human resources, whether it be, staffing issues, whether it be issues that you need to deal with the authorities, all really challenging and at the same time rewarding as well. Also, I think what added to the whole thing was obviously we lived in a country where, unfortunately, we did have, on a couple of occasions, incidents which actually impacted our business really badly. This is obviously well before COVID, but we had the Mumbai attacks, we had some other incidents which were India specific. So as a result of which we had to overcome them. So again, as I said, those were really challenging times. But I think what made it, I guess what enabled us to overcome that was the fact that we had a wonderful team who was working with us. As importantly, there was Sarvin, Dimple, and myself. So there were three of us. In that sense, Eric, we are very lucky. We are, it's not just a sole proprietorship. We have three people, and who thankfully, by the grace of God, get along really well with each other. We help each other. We continue to help each other. And that has really, really helped. But as I say, I think I have to say 30 years later, the positives have far, far outweighed the challenges. That's why we still are here. And hopefully we'll be there for, I guess, another 30 years, hopefully for more, at least.
Right, absolutely. I wish I could, obviously this is recorded, so I could use it. But really, that part that you just answer, I would play it to anybody who would think about starting their business, especially in our industry, because you're so right. You don't know what you don't know. You know what's going to happen. What you think is going to be hard might not be as hard. And what you think is going to be easy might not be as easy. And at the end of the day, it's the excitement of entrepreneurship and the excitement of working in our industry. Now, what I think it's also very interesting you mentioned is the fact that the tree is a trio, so that you're not alone, and you can always complement each other, but also compensate if somebody's traveling, somebody is sick, somebody whatever, and that's very important for anybody thinking about starting their own business, right?
Absolutely. And I think, what has also really helped, Eric, is we are three such completely different individuals, which I would say most of the time is excellent, but obviously, as you can imagine, sometimes becomes challenging as well, because, we have three such diverse views. But I think overall, it's just in our industry, especially when you have three such diverse views, it can only help because it brings about three different views. It brings about creativity, which is completely different. Obviously, you know all three of us, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But absolutely, that has truly helped, Eric. I think having the three of us, be there, I think has clearly enabled us to overcome a lot of issues which I'm sure if if it was just one person or two people, one would have overcome. But it certainly made it easier having three of us there. And I say that is an absolute boom. That is just I thank God that I have Sarvan and Dimple with me. And obviously, as you know, they have a lot more experience in this industry than I do. And just have them holding my hand many times, and just knowing that I can sort of fall back on them, because I know that they will do the right thing, and they will sort of guide me in the right direction.
Absolutely. And one of the three of you is a nice person.
I won't ask you who.
No, I really love the three of you. You're absolutely right. Now, we obviously have faced the two most difficult years ever. What were the decision you took at the beginning? When did you realize that this was really something that was extremely serious and going to last? And where do you stand today?
It has. So I think the only thing one can take solace from, Eric, is that we are not alone in this, and therefore there are many people who have gone through what we went through, what we are going through. Anybody in this industry and many other industries. I think back in March of 2020, India was still at that point sort of relatively, it hadn't come here, or at least we thought that it hadn't come here. And we were in the midst of possibly one of our best years. We had several programs that were planned for April, for May, incentive programs. We were really looking forward to these. And then comes March 14th, 15th, where we are told that you need to now start reducing your the office staff. You can't all be in the office. But I think we all thought that it would end by May. And then obviously as it went on, we realized that it was not going away. And therefore, I think the single most important thing and the decision that we took, Eric, was communication, honesty. What we decided was that we would speak to our team and tell them the honest truth, and tell them what we could do and what we couldn't. And I think that was the best decision we took, because I think that clearly established with the entire team that these guys are sort of leveling with us, and they were part of every decision that we took. The decisions were not easy, as you can imagine. We had to downsize. Obviously, for a while, there were salary cuts, the usual. I think what everybody went through.
Yeah.
There were people with leave without pay, and then a year later, we actually took the decision. We were in a very envious position, Eric, that we owned our own office. And we had 50 people who work with Designer Holidays, and our overriding priority was, how do we look after these people? And so we took a decision last year, or end of 2020, beginning of 2021, that we would actually sell the office, work out of a smaller space, and use what we would get basically to look after our team. I think that really went a very long way with the team, because I think they realized that
Sure.
that we were again, it was a very difficult decision, but at the same time it was also the only decision. Yeah. And I think today we are in a situation where we have the respect, we have the love, we have the friendship of all our colleagues, and obviously that's where we are today. Business is, I guess, as with every other part of the world, is gradually starting. I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched, because every time we thought that this thing it's come back to bite us. But we thankfully, again, Sarvan, Dimple, myself, we have our team is a lot smaller, but we are hoping that as business improves, we sort of rebuild again. The body might be 3 decades older, but the enthusiasm, the motivation, the creativity, I guess you have to innovate to be relevant today. That still remains. So I think going forward, I think we can only hope and pray that the times will get better. I think the priority has been survival. Once there's survival, there's revival. And I think what we've done is we've done whatever possible we could do in our powers to do that, while at the same time completely keeping all our colleagues and the team fully updated on what it is that we are doing.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. And you're talking about the body's 30 years old, but older, but probably wiser is the mind. But the creativity, remember when we put together, and we couldn't execute on it because of the client needed to reduce the time in India. But when we were in Udaipur, looking at going to the Lake Palace, and next to it was the site where the James Bond movie Octopussy was filmed, that we were going to get people on little boats and then play the James Bond music, and then have the diver coming from under the water into the boat, taking the suits off, being in tuxedo with the keys for check-in. I mean, just the thought of it and planning for executing that was just phenomenal.
So I think it's like starting in a strange way. I guess it's like starting over 30 years later, but I guess the advantage or the positive is that we have the relationships, the partnerships, the friendships with people such as you, and the support of people such as you. So even though you're almost starting over, you're not really starting over, because
Right.
I know that there's Eric there, and I know that there are so many of our friends and colleagues and clients who are there, and so therefore I guess it just makes it. I think one is just looking so forward to tomorrow, and one just hopes and prays that it's a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. Talking about tomorrow, and I we can speak for hours, but I always like to end with the same question that I got from my friend Jason Gaignard, who's, by the way, episode 100, if you want to listen to him, is also another phenomenal person. When we meet face to face with you, Dimple, Sarvin, hopefully Kalpana and others in 1 year time with a bottle of champagne, what will we be celebrating?
We will be celebrating friendship. We will be celebrating being together, and we will be celebrating good times. And I think the most important thing that we will be celebrating is just our friendship. I think that surpasses everything, Eric. Business is there, business will come, business will go. But I think in life, good friends is what makes it all worthwhile. And I think that's the single most important. And when you come, don't come alone. Make sure that you bring your wife and your wonderful daughters as well.
Awesome. I'll drink to that, and I totally agree with you. Samir, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with me, and I hope to see you soon.
It's a pleasure, Eric. Thank you very much for having me.
Samir, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing those great memories and also those hope for the future. Can't wait to see you and all the team together anytime soon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on my LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you find any part interesting, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.